Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, or actually I want to talk about a Dungeon Master tip about improvising, because often I get asked questions about how do you improvise, and there's lots of ways you can improvise, but for today I'm going to focus on imagine a scene in your mind. So what does that mean? That means I want you to imagine a scene in your mind, and from that image you're going to describe to the players in detail what you imagine in your mind. It sounds very, very simple, but actually it can be very, very difficult if you haven't done enough of it. It's one of those things, like all improvising, you have to practice, you have to do it many times. So this works best, I find, when you start using your imagination and trying to describe what's in your head. It works best with people who are visual learners, people who are good with spatial problems, people who basically like pictures. If you like pictures, you'll find this particular method pretty useful to you. If you're not a very spatial person and not very visual, it probably won't work very well for you, and therefore you might not find it quite so useful. So how do you actually imagine a scene in your mind without notes? The trick is you're going to recall something you have seen before, because if you have to create the entire scene in your mind from scratch on the fly and improvise it in the middle of the game, it's probably going to be very, very difficult. So what do? I recall scenes I have seen from a movie. If it fits the situation, I will recall a scene I have seen in a particular movie, and that is what I will describe to the players at my table for that particular situation. If I don't have a movie scene, it might simply be something like a picture from a book, or it might be a piece of artwork like an oil painting or an acrylic painting or watercolor, something like that. Any type of artwork can work really well if it basically gives you a scene that you remember and you can describe, as long as you know it well. Another way is to simply take the description from a book. If you remember the description from a book and it fits your particular situation, then just reuse that description that somebody else has created. You can use that as your own piece of work, that's fine. Another way is I use sculpture. I like 3D images, but I like sculpture. So if I see a sculpture that paints an image or gives me a way of describing something to the players that would fit with what's going on in my adventure in the story, then I will use sculpture. I know a lot of people will also use songs. I've come across quite a few people who like music, and when they listen to music, it creates an image in their mind, and if you can pull a particular song that paints the image in your mind, then great, use that if that's what you can recall. Another way, I've come across a few people who have got very good memories for poems, and often when you recall a poem, it paints an image in your mind, so you can use poetry as well. Another really simple way is if you have seen something, personal life experience, really helpful, a scene or an event that took place, and you can recall that and describe that to your players, is another really easy way of making sure you have something you can imagine and you can describe to your players. So as I said, requires practice. You can't just expect it to work out straight away. You won't be very good at it the very first time, so just accept that and don't worry about it. Just keep doing it till you get better at it. And don't try and pull out, like I said, don't try and imagine a scene you have never seen before. If you've never come across anything like it, trying to describe that can be far too daunting, and I wouldn't recommend you doing that. Now, if you found this video helpful or informative, please share, like, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I know I'm going to get into trouble for this one, I suspect. YouTube seems to be dropping down my videos as unsuitable for most advertisers. I don't understand why. I'm not talking about anything that I thought would be an issue, but truthfully, who knows? Now, with the comments, I want you to put a comment in there, try this technique, see how it works for you, and tell me how it went. because that'll be useful to you. And also make sure at the end of the session that you get feedback from your players about a certain situation that you might have imagined and described to them, and see how they viewed it. You might have a more scathing assessment of how well you did, and they might think you did a really good job. So till next time, keep rolling those 20s.